using chemical weapons to assassinate its enemies. And if the Russian government stopped helping its Syrian ally to use chemical weapons to kill Syrian children, and if Russia cooperated with the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons by turning over all information related to this nerve agent, we would stop talking about them.
Hey, that's that Indian American that Donald Trump sent to the United Nations as ambassador. Her name is Nikki Haley, just in case Hillary Clinton wasn't aware of that, as she talks about Americans discriminating against Indian Americans. Welcome back into the program. Glad that you're with us. You know what? We've got James Carafano here in the studio with us. He is, of course, the national security and foreign policy expert at the Heritage Foundation. And hit it, Kelly, please.
Jim Carafano.
There is something that you can do, you personally as an individual, to make the world safer for your children and your grandchildren. And that is listen to Allman in the Morning.
There, and the Mark Cox Show. Let me add that. That's his open from Allman in the Morning, where he is a regular guest. And tonight he's in town to spend some time with Jamie and with Genevieve Wood and others out at the Norman Probst golf course headquarters there at Forest Park. And Jim, welcome into the program, man.
Hey, great to be with you. And welcome to 97.1 Talk.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
It's like one of those superhero movies where they get all those guys together in one place and then they take down like some truly evil actress. It's awesome.
We're trying. That's for sure. I appreciate that. It's good to have you. It's good to have you here in person. We hear you on the phone so much with Jamie.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you over the years. And then, boy, it's not like there's not a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, that's true. Just nothing. Like right off the top there, I know I didn't put headphones on you, but I had Nikki Haley talking about the Russians and the sanctions that they've slapped on them. What do you think about this?
Well, so I was actually on the phone, the background call this morning with the White House where they were giving the backstory on what they're doing. And there's a couple of things that are really impressive. You know, people often accuse Trump of being impulsive and what. This response to the Russians is so integrated, interagency, FBI, Homeland Security, Commerce, integrated, and so thought out, and so part of a long-term strategy that it's got to scare the Russians. This is way more serious than anything Obama did. And remember, Obama did almost nothing on these cyber attacks until the very end of his presidency. And here in a year, everything Obama did, Trump has not taken away any of that, not a sanction or anything, and he has layered on not just the cyber response, which is kind of like a cyber blitzkrieg, but he's been tougher on Russia in Syria. He's been arming Ukraine and Georgia, something Obama never did. He's implemented the sanctions that Congress passed last year. I mean, the Russians know that they're just getting into a headwind.
You know, you've got to be pretty bold. I mean, I couldn't imagine. It's just hard to envision. It's like Cold War kind of stuff where you're going onto foreign lands and assassinating people with whatever powder they use to kill the guy in the UK.
It really is kind of well, it's not unprecedented because the Russians have done it before, but it is such an act of desperation. And today, actually, the U.S., Britain, France, and Germany came out with a powerful statement pushing back on this. So Putin is just getting all kinds of pushback. And if this doesn't put to death, the whole Trump is soft on Russia thing, and still people say, well, he doesn't attack whatever. And this is, I think, the big mistake of all the critics is all they do is they listen to Trump's rhetoric. It would be like watching a Martin Scorsese movie and only listening to one character in the movie. And it's like, dude, the movie is everything you're doing. So Trump uses his public voice for some things, but it's not for everything. And if you want to understand what this administration is doing, you have to look at the whole policy. And the policy on Russia has been tough and honestly far tougher than the Obama administration.
Well, it's part of the disinformation of America, quite frankly. I don't know how else to put it. So many people are polarized in this country, and they just get their news from one source, one side or the other side. I mean, if you're only listening to MSNBC and CNN, quite frankly, in my opinion, you would believe that Trump has not only done nothing, but he's been aiding the Russians, and you don't get the other side of the story. It's why I encourage people all the time on this show. Don't just listen to what I tell you here. If I tell you I saw something on CBS News or the Huffington Post. Go look at it yourself. Educate yourself on these issues.
No, I go on Twitter and mostly I use Twitter to just kind of find out what's going on. It's great, but I go on Twitter, and most of the tweeting back and forth I do are with people who I love dearly, but they are the arch, critics of the president. But we have kind of honest dialogues. We don't call names most of the time. We have honest, we'll say, well, he did this and I'll counter that. And we have a good back and forth. I mean, they called me out recently because I said, well, Tillerson's going to be around for 3.5 more years. So I was only off by 3.5 years.
Yeah, you know how that goes.
But in fairness to me, Tillerson was planning on staying his entire term, and I can kind of explain why he got fired. But one on me, I was wrong on that one.
Yeah, please do. Please enlighten us, because I watched his news conference yesterday, and I said on the air when I was watching it, he looks a little flustered, like he was taking his papers after he would read it, and he put it aside and he kind of slammed it down, and he just looked a little huffy and puffy about the whole thing, which I guess if I was fired that way, I might be too. But what was behind it?
Well, first of all, Tillerson was planning on staying for 4 years. That is a fact. He was dedicated to serving his country, and he wanted to do that. He did a lot of things I thought very well. I thought he was the Energizer Bunny. He was all over the world doing foreign policy, and he was part of a team that put together a lot of really good policy and strategy. But he crossed a red line with the president, which is on the Iran deal. The president had said, look, we're either going to fix it or nix it. Either the Europeans are going to come on board pressing us on the Iranians on this deal, or we're going to walk away from the deal. And what Tillerson did, contrary to the guidance he got from the president, after having helped the president put together this policy and signing off on the strategy, Tillerson was negotiating something less than what the president wanted. So the president fired him. Look, I mean, I spent a lot of time looking at these guys, and Trump doesn't want everybody to be a mini-me, and he doesn't want people to just tell him what he wants to hear. He learns, and he decides by having people roll up their sleeves and argue and throw elbows. So he likes the arguing. He likes the debate. He feels that that's what gets really the best out of people. But then he makes a decision, and once he makes a decision, he expects people to follow through. And I think that's fair. Yeah,
well, I think it's fair. And I even said this as the show started today. If you watched the campaign and you expected anything different out of the way he governed as president, you were confused. I don't know why anybody expected anything different.
And I was kind of disappointed, honestly, in Tillerson, because he's worked with a guy for a year. He should have known better. And this is again, I think, why Gary Cohn got fired, because Cohn was just kind of protracting out the decision on tariffs and just wouldn't get to a decision. I think it's why Bannon got fired, because Bannon was frustrating trying to get to a final decision on Afghanistan.
Right.
And the president look, here the president goes, I think this is common sense. Convince me that common sense isn't the right answer, and why trying something different isn't worth it. And if you do, great. If you don't, we're going to do this. And he likes to debate, but he wants to make a decision, and he wants to move on. And if you're not part of that, whether you're Cohn or Bannon or Tillerson, I guess it's the highway. I think it's a real disappointment. I thought Tillerson was an effective part of the team. I think wanting to reform the State Department was exactly the right thing, even if the Yahoos hated it. I actually thought Pompeo was doing an awesome job at the CIA, and I actually think that's a real loss that he's not still there. But president made his decision, and we'll move on, I guess.
Do you? What's your opinion on the lady at the CIA who's been nominated? It sounds to me like the long knives are out for her already.
It is. I think. Well, look, I think the criticisms are just unfair. If she had done anything illegal, Obama was president for 8 years. He was over the Department of Justice. He was over the CIA. He was over the FBI. If him and the leaders of his party thought anyone in the CIA had done anything illegal, they had 8 years to bring them to justice. So to have people from the president's party stand up and say, why would we put somebody head of the CIA who has committed a crime and done something illegal? I think that is not just fatuous. I think it's just calumny. I mean, that's just pure ugly politics. You don't like her, fine. But accusing her, not just accusing her, just saying she committed a crime, when your party had 8 years to prove that, I think that's just beyond the pale.
All right. Jimmy Carafano, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you for being